All good. I see you all wore your was in jewelry. I wore
Yeah,
was in jewelry too.
yeah, I see it too.
All right, let's get started. So my
Okay.
first question to you is, how did you get into jewelry making and what made you start WASN?
So I was always into like arts and crafts growing up. And like we actually had like a little box when I was a kid that had all these like spare jewel like beads and sequins and stuff that I would always like tinker with and make jewelry. So that's like I always had that passion of like making little things with my hands. And wanted to create wasn't because I wanted to create something that celebrates South Asian women and people in general. And I wanted to create something that like allows us to sort of take ownership of our own bodies. And I was inspired by our culture of using gold and gemstones to like adorn our bodies every time we would go on a wedding or for a special occasion. So that's why I wanted to create a jewelry brand that's catered towards celebrating our culture and our individuality.
Okay, I know. I feel like your jewelry has a unique inspiration. There's a lot of gemstones involved, and like you said, like gold plated, and that does draw, I guess, inspiration from our culture too. How did you get started with this journey?
I started in the middle of the pandemic when I was actually in a very dark place personally. So I wanted to have something that brought me joy, and jewelry brings me joy. So I was just like designing little things on my notepad and my notebook, and I was just looking at that and thinking, wow, I can really create a business out of this. So I started like reaching out to manufacturers. I work with ethical manufacturers based in Jaipur, and they make all of my findings, like the chains and the little things that go like the ear posts and things like that. And I also started talking to a lot of ethical gemstone suppliers from Jaipur, and I started creating these network and these like connections. So in the beginning of the year 2021, I wanted to really solidify those connections and just start my own brand, my own label. And so I reached out to them and I got my products. And once I had it at home with me, I was like playing around with the designs again to create like more designs out of all the gemstones and the findings that I had sourced.
Nice. Have you been to Jaipur before? I feel like I've seen
Yeah, I
videos
did.
and pictures of you in Jaipur.
Yeah, so this is a really funny story because when I went to Jaipur, I was actually a pre-med student and I went to volunteer with the Indian healthcare system. So that's when I was in India, and one of the weekends, so we would get weekends off. I was there for a 3-week posting and we would get weekends off. So one of the weekends I went to Jaipur with my friends, and we had like this whole arts and crafts tour of Jaipur. And I remember being so inspired, like even more inspired than I was when I was working at my volunteership. So I thought, wow, like maybe this is something I really want to do. And that's where actually the connections really formed.
I see you hashtag a lot where you wasn't. When I hear the word wasn't, it means weight, or I feel like I grew up watching Bollywood movies. It could also mean burden. So like, how did you decide? How did you come up with the name? What inspired you to to name it wasn't?
Yeah, so I was actually inspired by both those meanings that you said, weight and burden, because I think in our culture, our weight is seen as a burden. And I wanted to change that, and I wanted to sort of put it in a more positive light, because whenever a person hears wasn't, they sort of think of it as a negative thing, like, oh, because maybe it's a person who was fat shamed as a child, or maybe it's just a person who has these negative feelings towards just weight in general because of the upbringing that they had. So I kind of sort of wanted to change the connotation around wasn't and make it a more positive meaning. And I came up with the name when I was actually just searching. I'm also very inspired by celestial things and space and stars and things like that. So I was just searching Arabic names of stars, and the Beta Columbae is actually called Al Wazn. So I was very inspired by that, and that's where like I started playing with the name Wasn't, and I sort of abbreviated it into WZN, so it's a little bit smaller, and I'm not like taking from languages that aren't mine.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I feel like it gives a nice kick to it. It's like WZN. It's very abbreviated, short, but at the same time, I feel like it has a lot of meaning to it. And I want to touch up on the topic where, body shaming in our culture, I guess, is something that has been going on for years, including colorism. Let's talk about that a little bit. Growing up, I mean, I'll just talk about myself personally. Growing up, I was more on the skinnier side. So I feel like these brown aunties, or uncles, like they always body shame you for whatever. Like if you're too skinny, they were like, don't you eat? Like, why are you so skinny? And now that I'm older and, after the pandemic, I did gain some weight. And it could come with like different, it could be for different reasons. Some people actually have health issues is the reason why they, are gaining weight. Like, have you experienced that growing up?
Yeah, definitely. I think all South Asian daughters grow up sort of experiencing that. I feel like our community needs to do a better job in not projecting their own insecurities onto younger kids. So yeah, like I know I myself grew up hearing a lot of like, oh, you're too big. You need to work on your weight loss and things like that. Whereas I have cousins who are very close to me who grew up hearing the exact opposite. So I always like heard that, and I always knew that at the end of the day, like you cannot really please them. Like they're gonna comment on your body no matter what. Family members, just strangers in general. I also grew up in Bangladesh, so it's a lot.
It is.
Yeah, they're a lot harsher with it. A lot less tactful, I would say. And yeah, so I also think I want to touch upon this. Like I think a lot of it comes from like the South Asian culture of putting European beauty standards on a pedestal. So you cannot be too skinny because you wouldn't look European enough, and you obviously cannot be too big because you also, again, it's not part of the white beauty standards. And same with colorism. So I also like Wasn't is dedicated to inspire all South Asian women, even women who face issues with colorism, because again, that also comes from the European beauty standard where you have to be skinny and white and small to sort of fit into the beauty standard that our community perpetuates or sort of likes. And yeah, like I think we all grew up with that, and I definitely wanted to sort of touch up on that and change that, because I think a lot of people don't really talk about it either.
Yeah, I feel like they don't. And I feel like our generation is going to be the generation that changes things. A lot of us have moved out of, the small community in Bangladesh. We're seeing more people, more diversity. You're introduced, you're more knowledgeable, you're more educated. I guess we cannot blame our family, our parents, our ancestors, because they were once ruled by the British Empire, and I guess that white beauty or European standards make sense in that if you put it in that perspective. But yeah, going back to like Bangladesh, I feel like it's the toxic culture of putting people down, or if they're like overweight, or I don't know, if their skin color is a little dark or dusky, as they say. I know I experienced that coming from the Bangladesh community. I recently went to Bangladesh. Actually, we both went to your cousin's wedding, and I feel like it was kind of like an eye-opening for me, because I don't know, it's been a while that I went to Bangladesh, and I went after several years to Bangladesh, and I thought, wow, like people don't think like that anymore. So when I did see that people over there still think that way, I was kind of like taken back. I was like, wow, they still, value or see like, wow, if you're light skinned, you're beautiful, or like if you're skinny, you're beautiful. And they just completely ignore the other people who don't fit in that criteria. So yeah, but I'm hoping our generation will change that going forward. Let's go to, I have like a couple of questions to go over with you. It's called a question round. I'm trying to make this a little quick and fast. What are your current top 3 Instagram or TikTok accounts that you follow right now?
I'm just gonna say Instagram, because that's where I get most of my inspiration from. First will be, her Instagram handle is Hybrid Hues. Her name is Rahfa. She is a stylist and a production manager, and she does amazing work. She has assisted with styling Cardi B, Normani, yeah, I just go to her page every time I need any like fashion inspiration, any editorial inspiration, things like that. Second person I really love is Rawi Singh. I love her creativity. I love her fashion. She does makeup and fashion posts on Instagram as well as TikTok. And she's a Punjabi creator from Australia. And yeah, like her fashion and her makeup looks and everything are always so creative and so inspiring. I love her. And the third would be Mohua. I think you interviewed her. Her Instagram is Labor and Dev. I love her art because it's inspired by my country and by our country. And I just don't see that much Bangladesh inspired pop art or digital art on the internet. So yeah, I love her. She's very inspiring as well.
She is, and I love her TikTok videos. And I think she has a new podcast where she actually touches upon topics, that we just discussed, things that are kind of not spoken about in the Bangladeshi community. All right, the next question. What is the biggest challenge running a small business?
Time management. I am such a big procrastinator. I was actually making a funny TikTok about it earlier. Procrastination just gets so much worse when you're a small business owner and you're doing everything yourself and you leave like all those tasks for launch day, because that's what I do, and it's crazy, but that's what I need to work on, time management.
You manage everything by yourself right now? You're running it by yourself?
Yeah, I do everything by myself right now. I haven't had the opportunity to hire a team yet, but I hope to grow and get maybe like a videographer to come in full time to create content with me. Yeah.
I do want to, mention that like I see your marketing and how you market, how you record videos, how you advertise your jewelry items, even your TikTok videos. I'm so inspired by it. Like I just feel you have such an aesthetic eye. Like you have an eye for this, and it looks great.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So, what's your current favorite wasn't item?
Current favorite item is the Dilbert necklace. I did like a little poll on my Instagram stories to ask people what I should name it, and everyone voted for me to name it the Dilbert necklace. It's made of blue chalcedony stones and just a few pearls, and it's actually not on the website yet, but I'm gonna launch it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, this was like an exclusive design when I did my Canal Street market, and I just have a lot of product, like a lot of inventory left over. So I think I'm gonna launch it for the holiday season. So maybe next week.
Oh, I'm so excited to see this. And it goes perfectly with the heart shape, the name Dilber.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about your pop-up shops that you've had. I think so far you've had like 1 or 2 already. How was that experience?
Yeah, I've had 3 so far. The first one I did was they invited me. They were doing a show for Asian and Pacific Islander creators, and it was in Brooklyn, and that went really well. So I did another one in Brooklyn as well, and then my recent one was actually at Canal Street Market. So I really liked the Canal Street Market one. It was a 3-day shop, so it really felt like I had my own store, like I could go in every day and just open up. So that was amazing. And the thing I love the best about pop-up shops is just meeting your customers, because when I'm selling online, like other than friends and family, I don't really know like who my customers are or what they prefer or getting any real-time feedback. So when I'm doing pop-up shops, I can speak to customers and like also see like if a sale happens, like it obviously makes me feel great. But then like if a sale doesn't happen, I can also like ask them like, oh, like is the price too high, or is there something in the product that you feel like I could change and stuff. And I've also had people come in and like ask for custom designs, which was really cool, like working with them and like looking at their own creative process as well. So yeah, I really benefited that way from the pop-up shops.
I think around the summertime you launched Scarves.
Yeah.
And I think one was called Katti, one was called Miti, I think. So you want to talk a little bit about the scarves? I think what makes them so different compared to other scarves in the market?
I think just the print makes them very unique, because the Katti scarf is inspired by the Bandhani print that you can see in Rajasthan, India, and also in Gujarat, India. It's It's a sort of print that they make by tie dyeing. So they tie little circles onto the cloth and then they dye it. And I wanted to just create like a digital art version of it. And then the meaty scarf is actually inspired by the Jamdani sharis that we get in Bangladesh, the Jamdani motifs, but I sort of took just one Jamdani motif and cut it up into separate geometric shapes and made a pattern out of that. So I think that's what makes them very unique, because they're both made up of different South Asian textile patterns, but in a digital form.
Oh, very nice. I didn't know that. See, I feel like this background information is so important to know when you're, I guess, like buying these scarves, or even like, getting to know the brand itself, because I feel like your brand is focused a lot on, the South Asian culture, which is really nice. I know you're an avid reader, so I wanted to ask you, what's your current favorite book?
It's fall, so I'm currently just reloving the Harry Potter series. But I wanted to just highlight one Bengali author. Her name is Maliha Bhuiyan. Her book is... Why am I blanking? Give me a second.
Google it. That's what I do.
I have it on my bookshelf, but my bookshelf is too far, so...
Are you more of like the paperback physical book person, or like digital? You like reading in your iPad, or
I'm a more physical book person, but it gets heavy, so I have a few books on my phone, but I definitely prefer just reading physical books. Yeah, so Fariha's book is called Like a Bird. It recently came out in paperback, as well as it's already out in hardcover, and it's just a great story about a South Asian immigrant growing up sort of story, and I think a lot of people will benefit from reading that.
You said you're going to start reading Harry Potter again. Is this something that you do like every year?
I'm like reading it right now. Every time it hits September, I like restart the series.
I do that with the movies. I think like earlier this year when I had COVID and I was stuck home for like 2 weeks, I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, you know what? This is the best time to have a Harry Potter marathon movie time for me. And then I watched all of them. I love the movies. I tried reading the book. I'm not a book person. I cannot like get myself to read at all. I remember in 6th grade when I tried reading the first book, did not go through half of it. I kept falling asleep. I'm like, the book is not it for me. Have you been to the store?
Yeah, I went for my birthday. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, I really want to go too. I haven't been there, but
yeah, you should go. You should try the butterbeer. It's so good.
Yeah, I haven't. That's what I want to go for. I'm like, because I always hear people talk about the butterbeer. Like before, I know people would go to like Universal in Florida, and they're like, oh, Harry Potter, we had the butterbeer, and I never got to go there either. And now I'm like, oh, it's in New York City. They have a whole store. I should go, but never came around it. Well, thank you so much, Maliha. It was great having you. Thank you for making time and speaking about Wasn't. I hope your brand does really well, and wishing you a lot of good luck.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and wish you good luck for your page as well.